Hi, and welcome to another Saturday where I introduce you to the various bloggers and podcasters and photographers that perpetrate on my personal blog roll, the one down here. My good buddy Audley Stephenson, I've known him for the better part of a decade. He currently operates the Audacious Life podcast and the video series. I've known him as a long, hardworking member of the National Basketball League of Canada, and he's also been involved in various other projects in Canada. Audley, it is a fantastic pleasure to have you here on the show this Saturday. Thank you for joining me. How you holding up, my man?
I couldn't think of a better way to spend my Saturday, Chuck. Thank you for having me. I appreciate spending some time here on your platform. I mean, you've been blogging for a long time, and I know, and we've been working. It's funny. It wasn't until you said that a decade. I'm like, man, time has gone by, hasn't it?
It seems to have. I mean, I remember you and I first met. For those of you who might not be aware, Audley is the vice president of league operations for the National Basketball League of Canada. I work as the director of player statistics and clearances. So we both have known each other for a very long time.
Well, yeah.
Actually met when the league was formed back in 2011, when I was just doing stats and Audley was interviewing players as fast as he possibly could.
Yeah. You know what? I sort of look at that journey, and so anyone that knows me knows that NBL Canada really truly does hold a near and special place to my heart. I absolutely always loved the league. I've always loved what it provides. Obviously, I'm a basketball fan, so that's easy, right, to fall in love with. But you look at all the opportunities. In 2011, there was no professional basketball league in Canada that existed. There had been others that have sprouted up, if you will, but none with any real longevity. And so when NBL Canada jumped up, started, I was eager to be a part of, and I thought I was fortunate and wanted to be able to provide and to enhance the quality of the league by adding what I could do. And so to now look back 10 years later, to know that, I started off as a volunteer, to now know that, I'm an integral part in the league executive and managing and running this league and guiding it and, launching it forward for another 10 years and more. It's a real blessing. And, I spent a lot of time talking to students, and students who want to get into the sports marketing or work in sports in general. And I talk about sometimes you get in, you just have to recognize what you can bring to the table, understand sort of the impact that you can have, what you can do, and more than anything, just do it with your passion. Let your passion fuel you, because those nights when you're tired or you got a lot of stuff to do and you're juggling, it's that passion that's going to fuel you each and every time.
One of the great things to realize about the sport of basketball is technically it was invented by a Canadian. James Naismith was Canadian. And the sport has grown in the Great White North. I mean, probably everybody in Ontario has some sort of Raptors gear somewhere along the lines. And I'm imagining at some point there will be plans to rename Yonge Street for Kawhi Leonard, should I say?
I don't think so, because we'll see. There's the Kawhi thing is interesting because some are still mad he left, and others just mad he helped us get a championship. I mean, I don't care. We got a ring. That's all that counts, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. So one of the things I want to mention is last year when COVID hit and a lot of things had to shut down, we all went into quarantine. We all had to adjust to this new normal. You found a new avenue for your expression, and that was to create the Audacious Life podcast, which is a combination video series and web blog. How did that come about, and where was the inspiration for creating this project?
Very good question. And you talk about the COVID pandemic and what it did to a lot of us. We immediately went into quarantine. We stopped living our normal lives. We started to become, we all of a sudden became less social. And I don't care, how many Zoom meetings you have. It's not the same as being in a room with someone or being able to touch people, all those sorts of things, shake hands. We lost a lot of those things. And what we also lost, as you very well know, is we lost sports. And I found, and for NBL Canada, we were probably 2/3 of the regular season done. We were talking about playoffs, and playoffs get, as much as the regular season is a lot of fun, the intensity of the playoffs ramps up even higher. So it's a really exciting time. I think we were sort of talking about scheduling and sort of getting ready for that piece of the second season, if you will. And then COVID hits and everything stops. No advance warning, no notice. It just stopped. And I struggled, Chuck. I struggled because that thing that was so much a part of what I did, and in some sense defined who I was to a certain degree, was suddenly taken. And for months, I had a really tough time because I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I actually, and it took me some time to come to this conclusion, but I actually was in a little bit of a mini depression where I was just like, what's going on? I don't feel like getting out of bed. I don't feel like doing nothing. I've always been a happy-go-lucky, jovial guy, and it's something that changed with me. And it took me a while to realize that because I was so much processing. I was trying to figure it out, and it was my partner who said to me, we really miss this basketball. And I started to, it was that point I'm like, yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that thing that I love. I don't have that thing that I was excited about. I don't have that thing that I was up late at night working on. And it was at that point I really started to think, okay, so we don't know where basketball is. We don't know where the world of sports is. We don't know where we're going to be. What can I do? What interests do I have? What things am I passionate about? What things do I generally enjoy doing? Now, anyone that, for those that are familiar with my history, I've done a lot of podcasts over the years. In 2007, as I launched my very first podcast, before podcasts were podcasts, and it was an NBA podcast, and I used to go into NBA locker rooms, interview players, and so I had done that for a little while. And then after I did that podcast, I did a leadership. I used to talk to authors, leadership people, and we talked about all the latest leadership concepts. And I did that for a little while. And then I did another podcast. I did one for the NBL for a while, and you were a guest on a few times. And I did another podcast called Hoops Talk Nation. So it was the NBA breakdown, hardcore lessons for leadership radio. I did a podcast, NBL Canada Live. Then I did another basketball podcast called Hoops Talk Nation. And again, it was just, I'd get all kinds of, whether players, writers, people connected with the sport, and did that for a little while. Then I did an old school hip hop podcast called Down with the Kings, and I used to talk to all kinds of Run DMC and Daddy O from Stetsasonic and the Fat Boys. I mean, that's that was my podcast. So the concept of podcast isn't foreign to me. It isn't something new to me. It's actually something that I've always been quite comfortable in. The whole idea of sharing, garnering insights, sitting down with people, trying to understand it, kind of like yourself, right? Like, why did you do this? How did you get there? What made you try that? What, it was all these sorts of things. And so I knew I wanted a podcast, which is, that's only part of it, right? So what am I going to talk about? What's the focus going to be? What am I going to do? And I really started to do some soul searching, right? Now I'm pulling myself out of this hole I was climbed into. I was pulling myself out. And I was like, okay, so what is it that I want to talk about? What things are important to me? What matter to me? What drives me? What motivates me? And for whatever reason, the whole concept of being bold stood out in my mind. And I was reflecting on my own sort of personal life and all the things I had done, all my major successes. I mean, quite frankly, deciding to be a volunteer with NBL Canada and working. So I'm a league executive. That's a pretty bold move.
That is moving upstairs.
That's wow. Okay. And so when I start to kind of look at that, I'm like, yeah, and then I started thinking about sort of all of the positive things that come out of us being bold, us doing the things that we're intended to do, us being audacious in our actions. And that's kind of when it hit me. I'm like, you know what? That's where I want my focus to be. I want to talk about and I want to connect with people to help them understand the key lessons in living a bold, audacious life. So the Audacious Living podcast really comes out of that whole concept. And I'm just, I think I've probably done about 30 episodes since December. I got a ton of content that I just haven't released yet because I just connected with that many people, which is really cool. It's really cool blessing to have. So I mean, I think I have enough content that could take me to the fall easily. And it's just whether it's authors, leadership experts. Just last week, I sat down with Chris Matthews, who is a former NBL player, now goes by the name of Lethal Shooter, and he's an NBA coach. He's got like 1.7 million followers. And for example, the concept we talked about was, the significance in betting on yourself, taking that chance and betting on yourself, because that's what he had to do to get him to where he is now. Now he works with all kinds of NBA players, Drake, all kinds of hip hop entertainers, celebrities. They all want to sit down with the Lethal Shooter and get better at becoming being a better basketball shooter. So the premise of it really is about distilling the key lessons from different individuals. You could be in business, you could be in music, you could be in entertainment. You have some leadership experts. I've talked to a ton of authors who have written books about all kinds of topics. And it's really about distilling the lessons from those individuals, breaking them down to the point where we can identify the keys and the steps to being more audacious in our everyday living. So that's kind of how it's evolved into. It's been an incredible journey. I think I've gotten back far more than I've given. That wasn't intentional, but it's just happened that way. And I'm blessed and happy, man.
It's all good, my brother. One of the things that I do want to mention about the basketball and the NBL as it's grown in Canada, prior to the NBL, the most predominant sport obviously is hockey, and of course there's the major seasons. We have summer, spring, winter, fall. You guys have NHL, major, junior, Olympic tryouts, and whatever else might be going on, but it's usually involving ice and a puck. The difference has been now when the NBL has come in, and this is now, we've been in business for 10 years and it's been going forward. The NBL has been able to carve out major fan bases in predominantly middle market Canadian towns and cities. It's been a major hit in London, Ontario. It's grown into a major hit in St. John's, Newfoundland. It has very strong support in Halifax and Charlottetown, PEI, and Moncton. It's grown into other Ontario-based cities, Kitchener-Waterloo, a good strong following in Windsor, a really strong following in Sudbury. And a lot of these were and still are major junior hockey cities where the arenas were predominantly designed for major junior hockey, but basketball has grown into a strong supporting sport. What would you say about the individual growth of these teams into the community to not just play ball, but to be an integral part of where they are from?
That's always been the secret sauce to the formula for NBL Canada, is that we're not just here to play basketball. We are a part of the fabric of the communities in which we play, and that's why oftentimes when our players aren't playing games or practicing or traveling to games, they're involved in the community in some degree or some aspect, whether they're at food banks or shelters or schools or whatever, or doing coaching clinics or basketball clinics. They're a part of our community, and our fans, that's probably the thing I've missed the most. I've always enjoyed interacting with fans. To watch the manner in which they're excited about our product is always big. As a league, we have the opportunity to do something that even like the Toronto Raptors can't do, right? Like for example, Chuck, we can have one of our players go to little Timmy's school to do a talk on anti-bullying, and said player can turn around and, hey Timmy, here's 4 tickets tonight for you and your family. Come out and check us play, the whomever, and hey, come down courtside and say hi to me or something. And little Timmy could do that, right? He can get his mom, his dad, his sister. They can go right down to courtside and say hi, take pictures before the game, right? The Raptors can't do that. They're just too large as an entity. So I think we've done a really good job, in carving out a really tight niche for ourselves, and to be able to. And there's lots of room to play in that world. There's lots and lots of room. There's lots and lots of growth. There's lots and lots of opportunity. And I really think that's really the strength of our league, and certainly the piece that fan interaction is probably the piece that I miss the most.
One of the great things is the NBL has actually provided an avenue for players to go up into major competition. Now, in the minor leagues, it's kind of the way that professional basketball is set up. For those who aren't really aware, you've got the NBA, which is the top league in North America. Then you've got the Gatorade League, which is the NBA's official feeder system. And then you have several independent circuits. There's us, the NBL Canada. There's the TBL down in America. There's LNBP. There's the Puerto Rican League. There's all of these various circuits. And many of these players are not only just playing for themselves and for their teams, they're also playing for the opportunity. And the NBL has been able to provide players to go and play for the Canadian national team. And Omari Johnson, one of the NBL's early stars, got up as far as the NBA and actually played in NBA contests.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And we've also, had former NBA players play in our league as well. You think of Rodney Buford, Royce White is a player that was drafted in the NBA. So
Ben Davis, big baby.
Yeah, and he was an NBA champion. So it's nice to know, and maybe you're around for 10 years. You establish a reputation, right? I think we've done a really good job of establishing that we're a reputable, solid league where you can get good competition, and whether regardless of where you are in your playing career, as a young player, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, and we know this. There's only a certain number of jobs that are available in the NBA, so you have to look beyond. And many go overseas, as an example. We didn't touch on the number of countless of opportunities that exist overseas. But for those that maybe don't want to go, don't have the wherewithal, not interested, and want to stay close to the home, as an example, I think we provide a really good option if you seriously are, you want to continue to be a pro. And stay close to home. So I think we've done a good job in that regard and continue to do so.
I should mention that one of the people that I've interviewed in this video series, Liette Hebert, who has a blog, a lifestyle blog. She lives in Moncton, New Brunswick, and is told on the video about going to many games at Centre Avenir to witness and root for the Moncton Magic.
Yeah, well, and that's it. I mean, I've been there as well. It's a great arena. It's only a couple years old, so it's brand spanking new. And they get loud there in Moncton. They really do. And look, at the end of the day, the Moncton Magic, they were a championship team, and they won a championship in only their 3rd year in existence. So pretty good.
Yeah. One of the things with your Audacious Life podcast is you always want to bring the positive and the inspirational stories from your interviews. What, for example, have been some of the more important and meaningful interviews? I mean, obviously everyone is important and meaningful, but what are some of the ones that stand out for you the most?
So I'll tell you, and you're right, the inspiration piece has always been important. That was one of sort of my own platforms that when I started, like, okay, you know what, we're going to do this thing, but, we want to ensure that we're offering, we're giving back, or we're enlightening people. And that's just part of kind of who I am. That's my character. I've done that. I used to be a professional speaker, and it was always about how do you get better and how do you motivate. And so that's very much within my wheelhouse and what I'm very comfortable doing. So what I wanted to do is being able to capture conversations from people who have, whether they've overcome some sort of adversity, or maybe they are experts in teaching people how to overcome adversity. I still wanted something to offer, but so in terms of impactful interviews, I think by far it would have to be, I interviewed a young woman by the name of Stephanie Nash. And actually, Steph, as I know her is a really good friend of mine. And 5 years ago, she was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a form of brain cancer. It was actually on Father's Day 5 years ago is when she first discovered this, and it's known as sort of the deadliest in the brain cancer family, because the life expectancy with treatment is about 12 to 18 months, or maybe it's less than that, but almost 12, somewhere in that range, 12 to 18 months. And 5 years later, Steph is going strong, and she's still fighting, and she's still pushing ahead. And so to be able to share her story, that story of perseverance and not quitting, and recognizing that things are going to get hard, but we still have to push ahead. And and this very much feeds into the podcast, because I'm always looking at ways that we can motivate other people. And I can't think of anything more motivating than someone who's overcome and continues to overcome on a daily basis a life-threatening disease. And there is no cure for it. This is just her life. And to know that 5 years later that she's going strong and continues to go strong is absolutely phenomenal. So I continue to have great conversations with Steph. I also interviewed another young woman by the name of Taylor Lindsay Noel. And Taylor, she was an aspiring gymnast, and at a very young age, she had a life-altering injury in which she was paralyzed and lost. And we were talking about someone who was on pace to go to the Olympics and represent the country, and now to suddenly her life shift in a significant way, where she's paralyzed and needs help for every basic aspect of our lives that we take for granted. She now needs some form of support, some sort of help. And what's so incredible and remarkable about her story is she never let her situation or condition limit her. She went on, and to this day, she established a very successful loose leaf tea company, because tea was something she was always passionate about. She was featured on Oprah Winfrey. She has an annual favorite things list, and so she was featured on Oprah's blog. And Oprah's Midas touch. She touches you and business blooms, and she's very successful. She actually just was awarded an award here in Toronto, Entrepreneur of the Year, as an example. And that's just one of the things that she had done. And so when you talk about her story and not letting situations limit or prevent us from going out to do great things. So because the message really is, we're all going to experience adversity. We're all going to have challenging times. We're all going to go through difficulties. What's going to happen is inevitable. But what matters is what we do to get on the other side of those periods of adversity. Because on the other side of that is where the true greatness lies. That's where all our rewards lie. That's where the riches are for us. But we have to find a way. It's like almost having a boulder in the middle of your road, right? You're on this pathway to vision, this big boulder, right? You go up, around, under, through. However, you got to get past that to get to the other side. And so for many of the people who I've talked to and shared time with, that's exactly what their experience has been. Getting over to the other side, whether you're Stephanie, whether you're Taylor, or a host of others who I've sat down and talked to, it's really about getting through that adversity to where your greatness lies.
Now, of course, I need to always ask this of any Canadian that I interview on this program. How much CTM money you got carrying on you, brother?
I do not. I do not. That's Canadian Tire. For those that are wondering what Chuck's talking about, Canadian Tire, they come up with their own currency, and they actually, you know what? Look, yeah, just to show you, I got some U.S. money right here, buddy. So, here we go.
With that funny money, they're all green stuff, man.
I got the green, but no, I do not have any. I don't have any money. I got no money. Nothing on me.
Yeah, it's all good. It's a running joke I have with Audley is that the Canadian Tire money is probably stronger than the Canadian dollar at this point.
I will have you know that the Canadian dollar has seen a significant improvement the last little while, and the last time I looked, I believe we're at 82 cents compared to the U.S. dollar. So we're climbing. We're climbing.
All right, maybe I better get me some loonies while I have a chance.
Well, I think coming up, we're very interested in seeing. We know we're not out of the pandemic. I know we still have a virus that we've got to collectively deal with, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with our economies on the other side of that. Right? So we're talking about adversity, greatness being on this side of adversity. So when we're on the other side of this virus, what happens and the kind of growth we're expecting. I know many economists are predicting great things, and I know in the U.S. it's starting to pick up a little bit. We're not quite there yet here in Canada, but I think when it happens, I think you'll see a lot of great things.
Definitely. A couple more things. I do want to mention that there have been involving with the NBL. There have been some very inspirational stories of homegrown talent. And when I say homegrown talent, the NBL has a requirement that at least, I believe it's now 4 of every player, or 4 players on each team have to have been born Canadian or have dual Canadian citizenship, which has allowed the NBL to promote Canadian-born players. Now, in the past, it's been extremely difficult for a Canadian-born player to, let's say, make it to the NBA. I mean, you've had Steve Nash and you've had a couple of others. It's just, it doesn't always happen. But now in the NBL, you have guys like Garrett Williamson of the London Lightning. You have, definitely Garrett Williamson. He's the lead scorer for the, he's done quite well for himself.
He's part of the national team looking to qualify for the Olympics this year. So he's another guy. There's a whole host of them, Chuck, and I think, and I'm glad you brought this point because I want to actually go back to year 1 of NBL Canada, where that requirement was 2. That has increased for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the league wants to encourage Canadian talent, but at the same time, we're also seeing a growth of the game, right? We're seeing a lot more Canadian players competing professionally. I think that the last time I counted, there were either 13 or 14 Canadians playing in the NBA, and which, for a country that had a couple, to see that kind of increase, and these are players who are contributing, right? They're not just sitting on the bench, and so that's.
And we're talking guys like Junior Cadogan, who are not only playing in the NBL, but they has a lot of time starring in the national team.
Yeah.
And Carl English, who played for many years professionally, who came back to finish out his career in St. John's, Newfoundland, and later set a scoring record with the St. John's Edge.
No, for sure. And so I think there's a lot of great stories. I was on hand for Carl's retirement ceremony. The team held a special honor, special event in his honor. The arena was packed because Carl essentially had come back home, right? He was a Newfoundlander coming back home and to play pro in front of family and friends who he grew up with. That was special for him. And so I think it was special for the league for us to be a part of that because Carl English has meant so much, certainly in Newfoundland, but to Canadian basketball. As we said, for years, he played on the national, representing the team on the national level. And the Canadian program at one time wasn't seen as the thing to do, if you will. It was difficult. It was tough to get guys to represent their country, which in some respects sounds kind of crazy. Like, you think, well, why would you want to represent your country? But I think really when you look at to where it is now, where guys can't wait, and the growth of the game really speaks to that. And a lot of players they want to wear the red and white proudly on their chest. And again, I just think it speaks to the growth of the game. It's exciting for our league, for us to be able to have more Canadians on each roster. That's also significant as well too. And it'll continue to grow as the game continues to grow.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. So, a couple of final questions. Where do you feel that podcasts and blogs like your Audacious Life podcast are headed in the future?
Well, I think podcasting is such a great medium. That's why I keep going back to it, right? Like, again, I'm on my either 6th or 7th podcast. I've lost count now. There's a reason for that, right? First off, it provides a platform to just about anybody. In fact, when I think about when I was sort of contemplating starting a podcast, the very first thought I had in mind is, yeah, but there's a lot of them out there. Like, there's tons of podcasts. Like, why am I going to contribute? And one of the reasons why I proceed, first of all, it's nonsense not to think that way. But everyone has a voice. Every single person now has a voice, and they have a platform which they can be heard. And really, I think as long as you're using that platform responsibly, then that's a great thing. Like, it's one thing if you're using it to spread misinformation or negative discourse or whatever. That's one thing. But if you're using it to enlighten, to grow, to help, to share, those are sort of the mediums, and those are sort of things that we want to be putting out in the universe. And we want to be sharing with others, because as time goes on, the traditional way of the absorption and the consumption of information, it's changing, right? Television, it's not the same. The major networks, they have to evolve and shift and grow, because now people are PVR in their shows. I remember you, if a Thursday night came and you didn't catch the Cosby Show in that particular episode, that was done. You missed it, right? That's it, right? It's gone. Right now, it's changed. Technology's allowed us to be able to share information. Technology allowed to make it more accessible. Technology allowed for us to get it on demand, if you will. And I think podcasts are very much a part of that. It falls into that bucket, if you will, in terms of you get content on demand when you want it. If you want to jump on your bike, your treadmill, you go for a walk, you can plug in your headphones and listen. You can now. And so I think podcasts allow for that. Podcasts, they're not easy. They're not hard to start. They're easy to get in, if you will. So it's, again, that accessibility piece is not only accessible for the end user, it's accessible for the individual wanting to get into it as well too. So I only can see it growing, becoming more of a mainstream, if you will. Everyone's got a podcast these days. They're like a business card. Like that's what they are. And I think that's great. It gives everyone a platform, everyone a voice, and they're here to stay, man. Blogs, podcasts. You look at the growth of YouTube, and you've got YouTubers. They're all in that mix, right? They're all in that bucket of we want to share information. I got something I want to say. I've got value to add, and hear me roar.
Most definitely. And one final question here. In our lives, we've been blessed to be able to meet a lot of famous people and a lot of interesting people. My understanding is at one point you had the opportunity to meet the Prime Minister of Canada. Am I correct on this?
I did meet Justin Trudeau before he was elected the Prime Minister. So when he was, I believe he had just won the position of leader of the Liberal Party, his party that he represents. And ironically enough, I met him in an elevator in Windsor on the way to a Windsor Express basketball game for NBL Canada, which is the best, right? So, and I remember I got in the elevator, and it was just he and I, and we're coming from like the 20th floor. So I get on 20, he walks in at 19, and we're both kind of looking ahead, and I'm going to myself, is that him? I don't know. Is that Justin Trudeau? And I'm standing there going, just ask him. And it's so funny because under normal circumstances, that's not, I'm not a shy guy, Chuck. I would say, hey, but for whatever reason, I was kind of in my head wondering. The elevator stops at like floor 15. And some guy walks in and goes, hey, Justin, how you doing? And he strikes up this conversation with them. And I said, I knew it was you. And so the three of us were shooting the breeze, and he got off, and we took a picture together. And that was me meeting Justin Trudeau.
On your way to a Windsor Express game.
Absolutely. It couldn't have been scripted any better, buddy.
I'm just amazed. I would never have pegged Justin Trudeau for a Windsor Express person. Yeah. I figured he would probably be more suited to be rooting for, I don't know, the Island Storm, or So
technically, he wasn't going to the game. I want to correct that. So that was when the Express they were playing a special game in
Caesars.
That's right, Caesars Windsor. So the game was being held there. Who knows where he was going? But I had gone my way to the game. So I did invite him, though. But he was unable to accept the offer.
I would still, I could just imagine him wearing Windsor Express black and red souvenir gear and rooting for DeAndre Thomas and Tony Bennett and those guys. That would have been fun to watch.
That would have been. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Audley, it is such a pleasure. Thank you for joining me this Saturday. And if you want to find out more about the Audacious Life podcast, go over to the blog roll, click on the Audacious Life link. You can view the videos and also the transcripts of the videos.
Yeah. So we do the podcast, obviously all the audio podcasting platforms, the Spotify, the Apple. It's there. We also have the exact same version, video format. So you give you a couple options. BestAudaciousLife.com is my site, or the blog roll. Chuck, you're kind enough and gracious enough to share my content. So I always appreciate my friend, and it's been good, man. I feel like we've talked a bit more the last while, but there's a stretch where we go from talking every day during the season, 2 or 3 times a day, to nothing. So it's glad that we're able to connect again, and the league is slowly starting to ramp up. We just hired a new CEO, and Gary Kurrigan, and he and I have been talking a lot and preparing, getting ready. So as soon as we get past this COVID stuff, man, NBL Canada's back.
I know the feeling. I know my phone's going to start blowing up. I've got special ringtones for every owner, every coach. When I hear a certain thing, I know it's this person, or if I hear D-Trains, you're the one for me. That's Audley. Trust me on this one. You get D-Trained, man.
I love it. It's awesome. Appreciate you, Chuck,
for joining me on the Saturday show. And by all means, check out the Audacious Life podcast and blog.
That's it. Be audacious. That's my tagline. Be audacious, y'all.
Be audacious, my man.